Hi guys, it's Andy from Man City FanTV, and really pleased to have Matty from the Magpie channel on today, and we're going to discuss everything to do with Newcastle and maybe a little bit about City and the similarities as to what's happening at the moment. So how are you, Matty?
Good mate, thank you. Apart from obviously missing the best thing in the world, which is football, and having a pint with your mates, apart from that, hanging in there.
Yeah, good man. Well, I know you're a frontline worker with the NHS, so you've got our respect for that, buddy. So well done and keep up the good work. So let's get into it. Obviously, the last few weeks we've had the whole issue with regards to Newcastle being bought out. At last, it looks like he is going to sell. The problem being is that it's to the Public Investment Fund, according to journalists. And as we know, Mohammed bin Salman, his investment fund is going to own 80%. You've got Amanda Staveley and the Reuben brothers owning the other 20%. And if it's true, the chairman is going to be Yasser Al-Rumayyan, who was the governor of the Public Investment Fund on there. So what were your first initial thoughts when the rumours came out about Ashley was finally going to sell?
I think it's felt too good to be true, to be honest with you, for Newcastle fans, especially with the amount of money that these guys have got. You know, Newcastle would have took literally anybody but Mike Ashley to be in charge of the club, because it can't get any worse to Mike Ashley. You know, until the last transfer window when he signed Joe Linton, we've been signing loan players and, you know, free agents for years and years now, not spending any money, pocketing them all for itself to put back in his own businesses. So when we heard that these, you know, billionaires, near on trillionaire families going to take over Newcastle United, there was a bit of pessimism, you know, because there's been leaks before about 2 or 3 times, especially last summer with the Sheikhs. But then once we've seen the documents passed over at the Premier League, once Sky Sports News were really pushing it, we started believing it, and apparently we're 10 days away from being the richest club in the world.
Yes, well, I think they've already come out and said the way they like to do business in Saudi is until it's absolutely signed, complete and done, they won't make any public announcements. So, yeah, in the next sort of 10 days, yeah, you could be an extremely wealthy club. Now, which leads me on to the next bit, which is obviously we're all reading. We as City fans are following it very closely because it's almost like a bit of a similar move to what happened with Manchester City. And now you've got the whole outrage and furore by some opposition fans, the odd Newcastle fan, not happy that I've read, but mainly all coming from the media about it being the Saudis and their human rights. How, as a Newcastle fan, lifelong, how do you feel initially about the fact that, you know, it's the Saudi government or the Saudi sort of public investment fund and them buying you out rather than an American businessman, etc.?
I'm sure you could dig dirty enough if an American businessman had billions of pounds to find something on him. But don't get us wrong, you know, we shouldn't turn a blind eye to the things that happen in Saudi Arabia. It is a terrible human rights record, all that type of thing. But at the end of the day, for us, we're football fans. We want to focus on football. You know, if it's good enough for the politicians, if it's good enough for the Queen and Downing Street to welcome these Saudis into our country and into our government and all the deals that I have with them, then surely it's good enough for the average football fan to cheer on their team on a weekend if he wants to be Newcastle as his new business venture, you know? Yeah,
I mean, it's a good point. I mean, that's journalists will say, "Oh, but yeah, but that's an easy reply." It is a simple reply, but it's true. I mean, you know, we deal hundreds of millions of pounds of arms to Saudi every single year, aircraft, BA systems, with the Eurofighter and arms and things like that. So, if it's good enough for the British government, why suddenly is it different for football? You know, I mean,
why was it like this when, you know, there was no outrage when Anthony Joshua was just fighting over there, wasn't there, for the Andy Ruiz bout? There was no uproar about that. You know, there was no uproar when they were linked with Manchester United, but the Manchester United were holding out for billions. Sheffield United are owned who took a loan from Osama bin Laden's family when their new owner came in. But just because they've seen the amount of wealth that they've got, it's triggering a lot of people. And how they expect football fans to be the brunt of it is beyond me, because we don't have a say in football as it is. You know, we always have this say that football fans should have more rights, more power. But we didn't have a say when Mike Ashley was in charge, so why should we have a say when the Saudi Arabians are in charge?
Good point. And it's funny you mentioned about the Joshua fight in Saudi Arabia, and you know, we know that that's going to be probably from a boxing perspective, there's going to be a lot of fights held there now because that's where the money is. I didn't see many journalists declining the offer to go out to Saudi Arabia on all expenses trips to report on these.
Six-star hotels and six-star hotels and everything like that. You know, he has a Bugatti for the weekend. No, that's absolutely fine when they go there. But you know.
Absolutely, definitely. Well, looking at some of the statements on the takeover, there's been rumours and reports that the takeover, the chairman, everything else are saying that we're going to definitely abide by FFP, and that's going to be, you know, a priority. But then there's other reports saying that you could potentially have £200 million to spend whenever that window opens and things like that. Is £200 million going to be enough?
It's only 4 and a bit Joe Lintons, so probably not. I mean, it's a lot more than Mike Ashley certainly give over the years. You know, we've been used to £5 million right backs, £4 million centre forwards. So it is going to be a hell of an improvement in Newcastle United, and we're not expecting to be top of the league in 2 or 3 years, Andy. You know, or even Champions League at that point. As long as we're not a club that's fighting for survival year in year out like we are now, aim slow and steady. You know, top 10, top 8, top 5. And then go for the league perhaps in 5-6 years' time. But the best thing for Newcastle is that we hopefully won't be fighting relegation every year. The atmosphere will be back at St James's Park. It's been toxic for years, and I might actually we've seen the 10,000 season tickets that were cancelled last year. You know, the city will be alive again with these new owners. It'll be a new era, new hope, new ambition, something we haven't seen in absolutely ages in Newcastle. You're talking decades. We're talking the training ground needs invested. You know, that's been 15 years since Ashley took over. It's been neglected. The academy doesn't get an eye in. So hopefully we can bring through the likes of more long staffs, revamp the football stadium as well. You know, St James's Park hasn't been touched in 10 years with Mike Ashley in charge. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done behind the scenes as well as on the pitch. And I don't think it's going to happen overnight. So I think 200 million is going to be a very good start.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the same with us. I mean, 2008, we threw a load of money at it. You know, we had the likes of, you know, Yaya Toure, David Silvers, all of these players coming in. It took us 3-4 years before eventually we won the league. We got the cup competition. We won that the year before. But that it needs that little bit of progress. Once you get some, you know, high class players there, it attracts other high-class players and things like that, because I don't think you're going to just be able to. I heard some people say, no, well, if they just offered players 400 grand a week, of course they're going to come. You're not going to pass financial fair play over if you keep trying to offer that type of money, but it needs to be sustainable. Do you think they're going to follow the Sheikh Mansour model with regards to, obviously, football aside, he's invested over £1 billion in the local economy, housing, local council, things like that, and what he's done with the CFA, the academy, building that, you know, amazing academy there. Do you think, are you hopeful that will be something that the new owners will do for Newcastle?
I really, really do hope so, because I mean, the thing for me looking at Manchester City is the infrastructure that you have got there for how many years now to come. Do you know what I mean? When those owners came in, Sheikh Mansour, everyone said, few years, yeah, he might win the league, then you'll get bored and throw it away. Look what he's built. You know, look what he's done for the local area. Look what he's done in terms of your training ground and the Etihad campus and all that kind of thing. We can only dream that we get that as well, and hopefully we will with the money that's involved. I've seen our owner and your owner are good friends. I think it's like a rich boy's playground, isn't it? It's just a competition between the both. So I'm sure he'll be copying off him. He'll be matching his tricks. He'll try and compete with each other and then have a laugh over it on a super yacht in the middle of nowhere. Hopefully that's the kind of thing, but it comes back to as well what we're saying about the government and should we accept this money and whatnot. They're always looking at the negatives, they're not looking at the positives. Yeah. So this new owner comes in and he does invest in the local economy, he does invest in the local community, it'll increase jobs, it'll increase a lot more than a lot of people are looking at. So if we can, like I say, start and just do your model, basically, you know, get the campus in there, get the training ground in there. Like I mentioned, the academy, a lot of it needs freshened up with Newcastle United. And hopefully he does invest not just on the pitch, you know, because there's a lot of work off it. And Newcastle upon Tyne is a neglected area, really. The northeast is rejected by our own government. You know, there's a lot of poor people in the area. There's food banks outside the stadium every weekend. So hopefully with this Saudi Arabia money, they can come in and improve that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be a prudent move if not only it's just looking at the football club, but the community as well. I mean, we've seen the regeneration outside of the Etihad campus and all around there, you know, jobs and schools and colleges and housing, and up to 6,000, you know, houses are going to be built over this 10-year period, and the investment in the local council and things like that. So I think it's going to be really, really important that they do that and don't just lose sight of it's about the football, it's about the community, because even more so for you, I mean, in Manchester, all right, we say we're the only club in Manchester, but that aside, if you know you've got United as well, we've got a big city there with two clubs vying for it, but everybody has bought into it. You in particular in Newcastle, you are a one club, you know, city. That's it. Yeah. It's all about Newcastle themselves. Do you think this is going to require you having not only your own fan base, which is we know you've got a huge following. What about the global appeal of Newcastle? Do you think that's important?
It is massively important if you want to try and become a big club, because you do need that wider appeal. I mean, you look at when you go to Arsenal, for example, the Emirates, they've got all these banners around the stage. You know, Australian Gunners, Indonesia, Arsenal. It's that global appeal that brings in so much money and gets you recognised. I mean, you go on holidays. If I went on holiday with this shirt, people would still shout Shearer, because nothing's happened since Alan Shearer's been here, and that's all Newcastle are known for. They were pretty well known early 2000s, late 90s. Unfortunately, as the nearly men, you know, runners up in the Premier League, FA Cup finalists 2-3 years in a row, Champions League on a regular basis. But if we're going to get there now, it's the world has changed a lot since those times. Yeah. And we're going to need a strong marketing team behind it. But you have the appeal to try and break into, you know, the Chinese market, and I'm sure they'll be doing the best to break into the Middle East. Yeah. So with the right marketing, with maybe one or two marquee players, a different manager in, slow and steady, build it up, and like you say, it'll be success that gets there, because it'll be fans from Africa who are tuning in to watch the FA Cup final. If you see Newcastle United lift, it'll be who's this black and white team, and then it builds from there. Yeah.
Well, you mean you've already got the iconic black and white kit, haven't you? You know, the likes of Juve and things like that. So people sometimes it's like the Madrid kit, the all white kit. You know, people do have these affinities with certain kits and colours and things like that. Well, I mean, looking at it, certainly reading the article from Martin Samuel this morning, I mean, he says one of the first things you're going to have to look at is getting not only, because obviously you can't, over in the few years you'll be allowed to invest money, but you've got to, from deals like kit deals. Currently, your Puma kit is £6.5 million a year, but over the deal, it's £40 million less than Spurs have for their kit deal, and over 100 million less than Liverpool have for their kit deal. So those are the type of things that that's where your money, that's where you're going to generate your income, which will allow you to circumnavigate FFP or abide by FFP, certainly in the long term. So, there's obviously, there's now with these protests, you've got the beIN Sports are now complaining about, well, Saudis, you know, we invest 500 million. We're the biggest investors in the Premier League, and is it Butte Q or something like that? They stream these illegal services in there. So you've got that appeal going on at the moment, which I think is something that might have to be looked at, and maybe the Saudis might have to take a step back from that type of thing. Otherwise, it could start, when it comes to Premier League contracts and things, could be a major problem in there. And then obviously you've got the journalists. Have you been following some of the main protagonists on Twitter and others, and because they've already started?
I think we knew it was going to come with this territory, didn't we? I mean, you all know yourself, like, especially when there's no sport really going on at the minute, it seems like all eyes are on Newcastle United, because fair enough, it is a huge deal. It is huge news. But the highlight is definitely on us, on Tyneside. And I think the hatred and the negativity to come out, like we touched on it at the start of the interview, at the start of this video, it's just a matter of time. And they're always going to pick bones at it. But like the BN Sports thing for Qatar to try and have a dig at corruption or extra money. You couldn't get any more hypocritical than that, could you? Or what happened with the World Cup and whatnot, and the Saudis' monies are still going to overpower them. The Premier League are going to welcome new investment, new competition, and I just think, I mean, what can you do about it, really?
Yeah, and this is the thing. I mean, it's we had a little bit to start with from the journalists. Not much. We had the similar things to you, where you're at now. You know, poor human rights records, blah 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 blah. At the moment, you're getting the whole. Well, what about the? He needs to answer to the killing of Khashoggi, the journalist, and things. This is. They don't talk about over 20 journalists that have been murdered in Russia. A far greater number of journalists have gone missing, held in prisons, and been murdered. Quite happy to write positive articles about Russia, go to Russia for the World Cup and all of these things. But you're starting to now read the same sort of, where it started for Man City was, like I said, Jonathan Liew in The Guardian today, using terms like despotic thugs. You've got Miguel Delaney, who's one word constantly is sports washing. City fans have been called rats by Matthew Said. We've been called all sorts of scum by one journalist. We've had the likes of Nick McGeechan, who is very much all about human rights issues. You've got Nick Harris and Rob Harris. You've got Ollie Holt of the Mail now is already writing sort of negative articles. Tariq Panja of the New York Times. So you've got all of these, you know, journalists already starting. They're not hit the fans yet. They're just hitting the. But trust me, you start winning anything or start looking like you're successful, the fans will be brought into this. Now, I don't know whether you've been following any of the City stories over the last couple of years, but are you ready for it? Because it is coming.
I was going to say to you, I mean, how did you deal with it once it came your way?
Well, we're like any fan, aren't we? You know, you attack our club and you go on the defensive. My point was, I don't mind if you know, if journalists want to talk about politics and about government and like that, that's fine. But stick to that. That's fine. People will have opinions about human rights records in different countries. You know, let's face it, our human rights records over the last couple of centuries hasn't been the best. But it's when they start bringing fans into it. I mean, do you remember can't remember his name now. There was the guy in Abu Dhabi who was arrested and put in prison over something like that. And because City fans actually dared to have a comment about it, that's when Matthew Said came out with, yes, they're like a bunch of rats, calling the fans. And as soon as they start using terminology like that, I mean, somebody in an article 2 days ago wrote, I can't remember, I'm not going to say who it was in case I'm wrong, but wrote things about the Arabs being laughing beards. Man, it's racist terminology. You know, these are serious writers, chief writers for papers. But when it starts turning into the fans, of course you get embroiled in it and you start getting angry, and they just generate. And what they do is it generates more. It's clickbait. Journalism is on its backside at the moment. Really, really is.
Like we've said, the things that'll come out on Twitter and you'll get people to reply to it. So they're getting what they want when they put out that clickbait, and they've got 100 comments and that link to their article, and people are clicking on the article, and they've won. Yeah. So for me, I just don't like to focus on that sort of stuff. But
yeah.
you know it's always going to get worse.
Yeah, it's really difficult to ignore because you know people say, well, don't read it then, but it's about your club, and then when it's about you as fans, as a fan base, when you know that you've done nothing wrong, it's very hard just to ignore it. It really, really is. And we've seen over certainly the last year to 18 months, there's been a real big debate with City fans on Twitter and a couple of big City accounts that have fought back against this WhatsApp group of journalists who seem to all be in it together and all seem to retweet the same articles. And yeah, great read this. And it's all to do with the fans. And you will probably have some champions fans who on Twitter who will probably take up that fight against them, because it is definitely coming. It might not come yet. You'll just have a year probably of the usual Saudi government human rights things, but it will start turning to the fans. Fans will start being dragged into it bit by bit, because that's what they'll do. They'll draw you in. Because when it comes to political debates and arguments, most fans are like, not interested. Well, but as soon as you draw the fans into it, explodes massively. So you'll all have to prepare yourself for that, because it will definitely happen. And you can be strong enough to just go, I'm not reading it, I won't open it. But the temptation is there, because you want to know what they're saying about your club and about you as a fan. Have you, from a fan base, have you spoken to any fans that are dead against it or really concerned?
I think a few are. Yeah, I think a few are, and a few are definitely reading these articles and then are buying into them. Like, we've had comments in our YouTube videos, especially when we first brought the news of the takeover. People saying, "I don't want his money. I don't want that Saudi Arabian takeover. If Mike Ashley leaves, I want someone decent to come in, because we know how bad Mike Ashley's been. Yeah. We don't want the foreign, richer version of him." But you get some fans saying that, but I would say it was 90% positive, because 90% want to know the facts behind him first, not just these leaked things about him, because there is a lot of good things that have come out about Prince bin Salman. You know, he was the first one to allow women to do this, women to do that. So he's trying to change the country. So it depends on where your sources are coming from.
Yeah.
But the main thing for football fans and for Newcastle fans is that for the first time in nearly 15 years, we've got some positive outlook on the club, that we're actually going to be pushing in the right direction.
And that's going to be brilliant, because I say for the Ashley takeover for many years now, it's not good for your club, is it, when you're protesting and all you're talking about is Ashley out, and all you're talking about is we're not getting any investment, and then there's 10,000 empty seats and people walking out and not renewing seasons. It's just negativity, and it just builds, and it's just horrible. It is horrible. Where now, hopefully, it'll reunite everybody. And, you know, those people who did stay away, I'm sure many of them now will be back with a whole, you know, new vigour and new, you know, energy about your club. Yeah. Let's face it, that's all it's about. It's about football and supporting your club.
It is. I mean, the thing is, that is one of the best parts that's going to come out of this once Mike actually leaves, is that the fans hopefully aren't going to be at each other's throats. Because pre-season, you'd have to prove where you bought your top from. Because if you said you bought from a club shop, Mike Ashley was a club shop, or you're part of the problem, or you buy something from Sports Direct, you can't do that. You're feeding Mike Ashley, you're feeding him to keep him at Newcastle United. You've got to starve him and his businesses. You know, you're drinking 9 Bar, which used to be Shearer's Bar, until Mike Ashley changed the name because of the falling out they had, which is built into the ground. Everyone goes there on match day, used to. If you've seen him there, you can't drink in there, part of the problem. So all these things that you are now, simple things like that, you can finally buy things from the club shop and have a drink in whatever bar you want. It's just mental how bad Mick actually turned the club and how toxic he turned the fan base.
I mean that's just shows you the lows, doesn't it? Like, you can't even drink in a club bar, you can't even buy from a club shop, because fans don't want to invest money into his pocket. You know, and you think now, how much money is going to be invested in club bars, club shops, merchandise, things like that? People are going to go back and start, you know, buying those things again.
Yeah, especially with help with financial fair play.
Yeah. Well, listen, have you got any questions for me, finally, before we wrap up? Because it's been great trying to, you know, find out a bit more about it, because all we're getting is just, you know, social commentary from the usual journalists, which everything is very much anti the takeover at the moment, and reading sort of Newcastle fans, you know, on Twitter, their replies back.
Well, on a positive note, Andy, how's it going to feel to be the second richest club in England?
Well, I mean, I don't buy into all that. But I mean, we could turn around and say, well, are we talking about the owner's wealth? Because if it's the owner's wealth, personal wealth, well, Sheikh Mansour's significant. You know, I think he's got 21 billion, and Mohammed Salman's up to a 7 billion. But as far as a family wealth, and this will be the other thing, state funded and all this type of thing, you'll get 1.3 trillion compared to, I think, 590 billion. I mean, it beggars belief, that type of money. But when you think, I think the is it Saudi Amrak or Saudi Amrak, the oil company?
Oh yeah,
is the most profitable company in the world. Yeah, you certainly got a load of money. The problem being is getting it invested properly in the infrastructure. And like you say, it's got to be sustainable, because they'll allow you to invest so much and make a loss year one and year two and things like that, as long as you're reducing that loss. But you've got to start bringing in money from outside sources. So, I don't know what the stadium, would you have naming rights for that?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the debate among fans, isn't it? Because we hated it when Mike actually called it the Sports Direct Arena. But I'm sure if we got promised with saying, Griezmann, and we'll call it the Saudi Aramco Arena, we'll be fine with that, wouldn't we?
Well, I mean, these are the type of business deals these are going to have to be done, because that's where you're going to generate your money. Like I said, with your kit deals, it's £6.5 million a year. When your deal is 100 million less than Liverpool are getting for theirs. I mean, that's significant money. That's money that can be invested, can be used by players. So I think with that money behind them, I think if they do use parts of the City model, what City have done, I can only see it being a good thing for the football club and the fans, if we put the whole political issues to one side. It's about time, and I think most fans of most clubs, if they're really honest, are just normal people. They're just everyday working man, women, whatever, would go, look, it's about my club, and yes, it's not an ideal situation, yes, but I mean, you look at Liverpool, you look at Liverpool's shirt sponsor, Standard Chartered, they had last year fines of over £100 for investing in, money laundering in terrorist, countries like the Yemen and Tunisia and Iran and these places. I mean, it's like, but that's okay. But I think fans just need to stick to the football, and if it's good for your club, as much as it might leave a bit of a bitter taste in your mouth when you read some of the articles and things, no country is squeaky clean. No.
When you first got taken over by Sheikh Mansour, how long was it before you won a cup? Was it 3 years? Was it League Cup or anything?
Yeah, we won the FA Cup. So it's 3 years. We won the FA Cup, and then the following season we won the Premier League first title.
And Mark Hughes. Sorry, go ahead.
Say that again.
And Mark Hughes was kept his job, didn't he, when they first came in? Do you reckon Steve?
That's a good point. I mean, it's one that we were talking about on a live vlog the other night. Because we're starting to get quite a few Newcastle fans come on our live vlogs now, because obviously with what's going on, they want to know about City side of it. And somebody said about Bruce or Benitez. I'd feel sorry for Bruce because he's a local lad and things like that. I can see him sticking with him for the very short term. Because if you've got an owner that's going to be investing this type of money, Steve Bruce rings you up and you're playing for Inter Milan or you're playing for whatever. Do you want to come? Like who? Steve Bruce. You have somebody, Nagelsmann, or you have somebody that's young, ambitious, plays brilliant type of football, or it's somebody who it might be Benitez or it might be whoever, a Roberto Mancini, take him away from the Italy job and put him in at Newcastle, that type of thing. Then I think that is probably, in my opinion, where you will end up. They might not. They might be ruthless and just get rid of Bruce straight away and put somebody in. I honestly don't know. What are your thoughts? What do you think? I
think exactly the same. They've said they're going to give him time, but they won't. They'll give him until whenever this season finishes, and we'll probably finish mid-table. And then I think they'll look 200-300 million. Are we really going to give Steve Bruce that? If the Championship manager that much money, if they can bring Benitez back, or they can get maybe a Pochettino, if they can. Yeah, you know what I mean. You're gonna.
That's actually a really good shout, Pochettino, because he's currently out of work. He's still getting paid his monthly salary from Spurs. But he's going to be looking for a job with investment, a good, project that he can oversee. He's got Premier League experience, albeit not anything yet. But You know, if you're saying, well, we haven't won anything, you know, it could be a match made in heaven. You know,
I think so.
At the start of a brand new ownership, you know, because I'm sure Pochettino towards the end was getting a bit pissed off with Daniel Levy and the lack of investment and things like that, where if somebody comes in and says, here you go, we can invest we can give you 200 million in the first year. You can have the full running. If we're going to build a campus. I mean, they're going to have to sell the vision, the project to a manager like Pochettino. But I think that could be a perfect fit for Newcastle. Like you said, if he lets Bruce finish the season, whenever that's going to be, and if they do, and then bring in somebody like that, I think that'd be perfect.
Yeah. Who was was it Robinho? Did you sign him on deadline day? Was he your first marquee signing?
Yeah, it was. We've got Robinho. It was one.
That was unbelievable. That.
It was just like madness. It was. We've got Robinho. I mean, because at the time, Robinho was still a massive, massive name in world football. You know, and Robinho on deadline day, and it's like, and saw some of his games. He was absolutely brilliant. Some of his games, he was crap. wasn't interested, and it was one of those signings. But
that's the risk in it, though. If you just put money out, and that's the risk. I think you've given up us as well, didn't you?
Yeah. I mean, Given was brilliant for us.
Given's amazing.
Lovely guy. But I mean, it's the things like we had Gary Cook as the CEO, and I said this on I think it was a documentary we made, the 125th anniversary documentary, and he was very loud and he was very, but he'd done a brilliant job for us. He was a great salesman because he came from Nike, and he went to New York, and I think he was with the New York Supporters Club, and Noel Gallagher spoke to him while he was in New York, and he went like that. Noel Gallagher said he showed me a list of 10 players and went, these are the players we're going to get in the next couple of years. And Noel Gallagher looked at it and went, what? And he went, from then on, I knew suddenly we had a plan, and this was serious. This wasn't, he said if we could get half of those players, and I think we got 6 out of the 10. I think Kaká was on that list, which we didn't get. But, on that list could have been the likes of Yaya Torres and David Silvers and others. I think it's really exciting times for Newcastle. I really, really do. It might not come overnight. It might take 2 or 3 years, but you certainly, as a fan base, I mean, just to even be able to go to the ground now as a fan without complaining or without moaning, without, going to buy merchandise or a beer, without having to think, where do I spend my money? That in itself is going to be fantastic.
Yeah. And finally, Andy, just before we go, realistically then, how long do you think it'll take Newcastle United to compete with Manchester City?
Well, I think if you've got a proper structure, a proper plan in place, I think you'll spend a couple of years of investment, and that will have to be sustained and regular. So you might, let's say you had 200 million in your first year, and you bought, let's say, 4 or 5 players for that. The next season, you'll probably need to buy another 2 or 3 players, and then suddenly you'll get a team. And it wouldn't surprise me if you're pushing for top 4. And not just with us against Liverpool and whoever else is in there, Leicester, Chelsea, Spurs, who knows. I would say if you invest right in the next 2 years, I think you could be pushing for a top 4. In a top 4, pushing for a league place, well, who knows? Jesus, I mean, let's face it, Liverpool haven't won a title for 30 years, and they were pushing close last year and the season before. So I would say 2 years, you're definitely pushing for a top 4. The Champions League place, if the investment is sustainable and you do keep building. And the key is, I think, if you were to get someone like a Pochettino, definitely depends who your manager is and what contract.
Happy days, mate. Fingers crossed.
Brilliant to catch up with you, and we'll do it again when it all gets signed, sealed, and delivered, and we finally know a bit more. My last question to you: should football come back behind closed doors? Yes or no?
Yes. I'd rather. Yeah, if you had asked me a month ago, I'd say no. But it's been that long now, I would take anything on the screens to watch it again. Yeah, Premier League is a bit boring now. I'd have anything, Andy, honestly, especially this festival of football. They said we can watch a game a day, we can watch a few games a week over the next month, see over the summer. I'd take it. Better than nothing, isn't it? No problem. Well, listen, Matty, thank you very much for coming on, guys. In the video, in the description below, we will put a link to the Map Guide channel.
So it's been brilliant catching up with you. Stay safe, buddy. And thanks for all the work that you're doing out there.
No problem, mate. Pleasure.
Take care, buddy.
Take care. Bye-bye.
See you soon.
Yeah.